There are few things that have puzzled the world for centuries. How did humans build the pyramids? Who really was Jack the Ripper? Is Mark Zuckerberg actually a human? These mysteries require endless amounts of education and studies to understand, and only after going to school for 8 years to get a doctorate can we fully begin to understand the biggest mystery in the world. How do you get into the Fate franchise? This question has plagued the internet for decades, maybe even a millennia, because yes, the internet has been around that long. But fear not, dear viewer, I have come today, after cracking the Rosetta Stone of anime with my gigantic brain, to deliver how to get into the Fate franchise. I would like to note that I mean only Fate. This does not go into other Naziverse properties because it's unnecessarily complicated. Anyways, with that, let's get into how to watch the Fate franchise. Fate Stay Night is based off the visual novel with the same title, and the visual novel covers 3 different routes. The first route is called the Fate route, the second being Unlimited Bladeworks, and the third being Heaven's Feel. Each route starts at the same point, but all go on different paths based on the main character Emiya Shiro's decisions. It's also worth noting that each route of the series also focuses on a different female lead, with Fate being Saber, Unlimited Bladeworks being Rin, and Heaven's Feel being Sakura. The Fate route introduces the plot of the Holy Grail War, which is a bunch of mages fighting to make one of their wishes come true. Each mage comes from a family of mages, and their family usually has a very heavy influence on what their wish is going to be. The mages themselves don't actually fight majority of the time, and they instead fight through these things called servants, which are heroes from legends around the world from certain points in time that they summon. Think of Pokemon in a way, or Stans from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. A mage is eliminated from the Holy Grail War if their servant dies, or if the mage themselves dies. The last mage standing will be the recipient of the Holy Grail, and they will be the one to make their wish come true. Each route of the Fate series builds on the lore of the world and the Holy Grail War, as well as history about the families competing. With that, you'd think that the animes would be pretty straightforward and just go in the same order of the visual novel, right? No, they don't do that. The original Fate route was adapted horribly by Studio Dean, and it spoils some important plot points for other routes. Because of that, I don't think anybody would really recommend to start with the original Fate Stay Night anime. Like, majority of the time, I'm not kidding, you want to steer clear from this anime, stay away from it, by all means, keep your wife and kids away. It also just looks really terrible. I mean, the CGI dragon that comes from this series is iconic because it looks hideous. This is where the argument of where the fuck do I start comes from, since everyone seems to have different opinions for newcomers. Some say Unlimited Bladeworks, some say the cooking show, some say the magical girl show, others give a 6-digit code to some good Astolfo stuff if you catch my drift. Today, I'm going to officially settle the score once and for all, and explain to you guys exactly how to get into the Fate series with the most optimal pathing. I made a community post with a poll, I've talked with a lot of Fate fans, and I've done some experiments myself, as well as a lot of digging around. If you don't mind reading, of course, you can dedicate your time to reading the Fate visual novel, which it's probably worth it, but I understand if you don't want to. For anime-only watchers, research has led me to Unlimited Bladeworks being the best place to start. Not the Dean movie. That's right, there's a Dean movie. Don't watch that one. That one really sucks. I'm talking about the Ufotable series. Now, before already existing Fate fans grill me here, let me explain. UBW establishes the characters and settings very well, and it starts people off with Rin. They start us off with Rin, who helps explain everything about the war to Emiya. It has amazing fights, and it is a perfect introduction. There's a prologue for Unlimited Bladeworks that features Rin summoning Archer and giving some background for stuff that's going on, so I'd also recommend watching that. And don't forget to watch the epilogue as well. Although I will warn you that there is a lot of exposition, since they cover a lot of information that the original Dean adaptation either left out or that they just had to include because Ufotable themselves is kind of saying stay away from that anime. Overall, it's just the best starting point. It shows you exactly everything you need to see or know about the series for newcomers, and it gives you hints and plot points and little sprinkles of information for future stuff that comes up in the series. Also, this show is just absolutely ridiculous when it comes to visuals. It's made by the same studio that made Demon Slayer, which Demon Slayer already gets a lot of appreciation and hype for its visuals, but this show kind of, in my opinion, blows it out of the water. Unlimited Budget Works is one of the biggest jokes from the community because every episode is like 45 minutes long in the first season, and they look absolutely gorgeous. Like, holy shit. Ufotable really just decided to make each of these episodes a straight up movie in terms of direction, visuals, music, and so many other things. Speaking of movies though, after Unlimited Blade Works, you are ready for Heaven's Feel. Heaven's Feel is absolutely amazing, and is in my personal opinion one of the best parts of the animated Fate properties. It's split into 3 movies that has each movie being even better than the last, with some of the best animation this studio has ever done, and honestly some of the best animation I feel like I have ever seen in terms of an anime. Every piece of these movies feels alive and like a real breathing world. Heaven's Feel also takes one of the blandest characters of Unlimited Blade Works, which is Sakura, and it delves into her a lot. You learn so much about her and her family, as well as some dark secrets of things that are going on behind the scenes in the Holy Grail War. Sakura's story in Heaven's Feel is extremely tragic, with there being twists and turns around almost every corner. While both Saber and Rin are ideal protagonists in the last few Fate properties, Sakura is the definition of an impure character. These films also tackle darker topics, so I'd recommend being cautious when coming into these films for those that have gone through some rough patches in their lives. It gets pretty intense with some of the stuff that happens. Even if you don't plan to watch all of Fate, I really recommend Heaven's Feel. The second and third movies are nothing short of genius to me and are some of my favorite pieces of anime out there. Now let's talk about Fate Zero, Goat Zero. Oh my gosh, Fate Zero is so good. A lot of the community recommends that you start with Zero first, but I really don't think that this is optimal anymore. Nearly all prequels are meant to be seen with existing knowledge of the show, and Zero follows that rule as it spoils part of every Fate route. Especially after the release of Heaven's Feel's movies, you definitely should not start with Zero, because literally the first episode of Zero spoils almost every major plot point in those movies. I'd like to credit LinkMiner00 here, a member of my community and somebody that commented on my poll, for making a great comparison for my Higurashi fans, as they said watching Zero first is like watching Higurashi go first before all the other series. You are going to be both confused and lost, and it might even cause you to drop the show or to not enjoy it at all. For people that don't watch Higurashi, a good comparison would be the Star Wars movies. Starting with Zero is like starting with the prequels, which you might not enjoy at all or might not understand because somebody that doesn't already have existing knowledge of the series would know that the whole point of those movies is to watch Anakin become Darth Vader and succumb to darkness. Or maybe even the sequels could be a good comparison too, where you're watching them to see what things are like now that the original trilogy has ended and time has passed. I've actually had a few test runs with some of my friends to see how much Zero's placement in terms of watch order mattered. I had 5 of my friends start with Zero and 5 of my friends start with Unlimited Blade Works, so 10 participants in total. There would probably have been more, but you'd be surprised how many people will say no when you ask them, hey, you want to watch Fate? 2 of my friends that started with Zero didn't enjoy it or didn't continue Fate afterwards because they didn't understand what was happening in it, while 2 of the other ones found it mediocre and the last one enjoyed it tremendously. All of my friends that started with UBW loved Fate and absolutely adored Zero when they went around to watching it. So it's because of all this digging and my watching and also this experiment that Zero, in my opinion, is 100% meant to be seen after you've seen the other shows, as it rewards you completely for watching it. You get answers for any questions you had left while watching the first few routes, while also delivering a lot of politics and philosophy that help completely finish off the characterizations of the families in the series. You also get backstory for who Kiritsugu is and why Shiro looks up to him so much, who the Ainsburn are, what happened in the First War that is referenced so much throughout the series, and so much more that I'm not going to talk about here because, obviously that would get into spoiler territory. Zero bolsters fantastic direction, amazing music, and some of the most iconic moments in the Fate franchise, and to be honest, some of anime period. Zero is just really good, dude. Not to mention, I would say it rivals Heaven's Feel in terms of overall production, but whether Heaven's Feel or Zero is better is up for debate. I personally enjoy both of them about the same. It's extremely rewarding as a last watch, and it finishes off your watch through of the main Fate Stay Night series. This watch order, in my opinion, is perfect, unless they decide to remake the Fate route. You get the least amount of spoilers you can, and you get a giant sense of fulfillment as you watch the stories unfold. Starting with UBW, we give you all of the context you need to understand and enjoy the series, and ending with Zero will leave you feeling absolutely satisfied. Now that you've finished the main core watch through of the Fate series, you're ready for some of the spin-offs. I'd like to preface that these are not really necessary, like you don't have to watch any of these at all, but if you really enjoyed the first few Fates, it never hurts to at least try 1 or 2 of them out. The Fate series is pretty dark, to say the least. There are a lot of things that happen that are pretty fucked up, and there are some characters we say goodbye to in some of the routes. That's why today's menu for the Emiya's Kitchen is a perfect, wholesome watch through. This is the infamous Fate cooking show that takes our favorite characters and has them all peacefully interacting with one another. Lancer is actually literally everywhere in this show, so it's perfect for Lancer fans because who doesn't love him? This guy is a Chad. Ilya is absolutely adorable and both happy and appreciated here like she deserves to be. We even get some bonding between characters you really wouldn't expect to see together in this series after watching the first few routes. It's just overall a very solid watch for Fate fans that want to see Fate characters happy and healthy. Plus, it even teaches you how to make some dishes pretty well if you ever feel like you want to make some stuff that was made in the show. I usually come to the show and watch a few episodes whenever I'm stressed or need to relax. It's just very peaceful. I would even say that it's kind of like healing. It's just a good spin-off. It's a really good spin-off. It's my favorite for sure. You finished the main routes. You could go watch the Dean adaptation if you really want to and you really like Saber. Get some info about what that's all about. Maybe you'll enjoy it, although it's not very likely. It's just the last piece of the puzzle that you can go to enjoy. Although it's not completely necessary, I would really recommend just going and reading the visual novel instead. It's done way better. Fate Apocrypha is a side series that takes place in an alternate universe of the events that take place in the main Fate series, which basically means that we have different characters and a different story. This is where two of the most iconic Fate characters in Astolfo and Mordred come from, and the idea and concepts here are pretty cool. The execution for the anime is a little poor, but it's still a fun watch. Just don't expect it to be as good as UBW Zero or Heaven's Feel. There's also Fate Extra, which takes place in the Fate Stay Night timeline, just without Shiro. This is where my favorite Saber, Nero, comes from. Man oh man, do I love Nero. Although the story for the adaptation is pretty whack, I'd recommend just playing the game if you want to enjoy this at all. If Velvet Waver from Fate Zero was your jam, maybe check out Lord Elmelio's Case Files. This series takes place 10 years after Zero and 2 months before Fate Stay Night takes place. I didn't care much for Waver personally, so this series wasn't anything too crazy for me. Although the source material for it includes a lot of important things if you care for diving into more lore about the series. We also have Fate Grand Order, which is the mobile game. It's a pretty standard gacha that adds on to the lore of the masters and the servants, but it isn't really necessary. It is fun though. You can't watch the animes without playing the game, however, since the animes pick up really late into the game's story, so avoid this spin-off unless you plan to play the game. Then there's Prisma Ilya. This is the Fate series' infamous magical girl show, which some of you guys might know for this scene right here of dancing lollies. This show is perfect for anyone that liked the first few routes and happens to be a hardcore degenerate, as there are a lot of very questionable things that happen in this series. Like, why did Ilya go from 18 years old to being 10 years old in some very suggestive scenes as well? I'm not going to talk about it any further out of fear of the FBI raiding my house. The movies are pretty banging though if you manage to make it through the regular lolly-infested series. But seriously, most of these spin-offs are not necessary to watch. All you need to do is watch Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, and Fate Zero. With that, you basically have all of the main series Fate titles you need to watch, and some of the most important spin-offs that were also included in this video. I'm sure some hardcore Fate fans won't agree with me, but this is meant for both newcomers and anime-only watchers. Now, my dear viewer, with this knowledge, you can go out there and prove to the anime community that your brain is massive and your balls are huge because you understand how to watch Fate. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you to my patrons, Svigar and Matt. You guys rock. And I'll see you all next time.